Hi, my name is Matt. I'm experimenting with some sounds with Ableton Live. Uh, Going back to the good old days of being a kid and banging on the pots and pans. Uh, let's turn those pots and pans into like actual drums. That would be great. I'm going to show you some things that I've discovered, ways that I've always wanted to have MIDI controlled drums, but I could never afford the crazy amount that people want for those things. And I happened to stumble across a couple cheap triggers. I'll post all this stuff as far as links and my costs on stuff, because I think that's important to a lot of people, just how much everything costs nowadays. And I think I've discovered a couple of things that's pretty kick-ass, and you wouldn't even have to buy triggers. You can use your standard crap microphones. I might even start using old headphones and turn them into microphones, because that's essentially what they are. So I can even use those for drum triggers, which is freaking sweet. So yeah, let's jump into this. So here's my setup. Let's take a quick look at this. Bear with me. All right. So thanks to Emerald, I am going to beat on these pans and use this. This is one of the triggers right here. Just this basic little sticky, stick it on your drum, attach its 1/4 inch. Yeah, fantastic. As you can tell, whoa. Fairly accurate, it's not too bad. I'll explain what I'm using. I'm actually using well, first of all, I'm using Ableton Live, and I'm using a plugin called Drumagog, and I have the trial. Everybody can download the trial. The actual plugin is fairly expensive, but honestly, the expense, I think, it would be totally half the cost of what it would cost to do, you know, a MIDI drum kit of your own, and all the experimentation stuff that you can do with this. It's pretty fantastic. So real quick and straight up here, I just have 4 inputs. I've got a drum trigger, a mic 1, a mic 2, and another trigger, and then I'm running it into Ableton's drum kit here, just basic, you know, pattern. So how I did this, this is kind of cool. I'm not a MIDI god, so I never claim to be. So those of you who know how to do MIDI, fantastic. I would like to learn more about it, because MIDI is always something that's just, I think, a little obscure to most people. But just randomly playing around, I think I figured some basic stuff out. So those of you who know what you're talking about and doing, sweet. Please make comments and feedback. I would appreciate it. So besides the plugs that I'm using and some of the microphones, I'm just gonna quickly zoom in down here on, I'm using a PreSonus, I believe it's a FirePod. There's my mics that I'm running into and in and out. I wanted to test XLR and 1/4 inch for this example. The other little trick I'm doing is that, take note of this, is that I am taking the MIDI, well, now I figured a way around it, but this will come into later, and getting some interesting MIDI feedback looping, is that I'm actually taking the out and running it back into the interface itself, into the in, so looping it. And with this Drumagog plugin, if I had one channel and I selected the PreSonus MIDI in and out, I can get some really, really interesting things once I start to do triggering and doing follow loops or triggering samples and setting it to keyboards. I just ended up getting just a crap load of really interesting MIDI loops, and it would actually, you know, it was going to C3, but for some reason it would force itself to make these really interesting like waveforms in MIDI. So anyway, I can go into that another time. But for this example, I'm actually not doing the MIDI looping into itself. I had to figure something else out because that brought some problems, of course. So I didn't really know what this stuff was all about. So this is what you MIDI people are awesome who already know how to do all this stuff. It's great. So if you open up the utility on the Mac, of course, PC it's different. There's an IAC driver, and if you double click into this, this is like your internal mapping. I believe on the PC you can get plugs for this too. You want to turn the device on, so you got to click this. By default it's off. You click that, and then down in the port section I made 3 other ports besides the bus 1. So I have 4 ports running, and it's all MIDI 1 and out is that default. So once I did this pretty much solved all my internal MIDI problems, of course. So now when we go back into Live, I can now send from each of these channels using the Drumagog plugin. I can route everything into channel 1 MIDI, and actually you can see here that, you know, I have this set to C1, and so I have that set to C1, mic 2, I have that to D1, this mic I have set to F#0, and so on and so forth. So now I can send that all through MIDI channel 1, but if you see here, this little drop down, there's my buses that I created internally. And that's the biggest secret of all. Whoop-de-doo. Everybody knows this, I guess, right? Sure. So then I sent everything from these 4 channels and routed into here. That's pretty much it. Other than that, the only other plugs I'm using on top of this is obviously a little compression. I'm using a plugin called Ambience to give it some nice verbiage, and then on my master I decided to use those on 4 just to kind of make it nice and tight, and I will post this audio with the video so you can hear what's going on. So I'm gonna set the camera down, or at least try. I don't have a tripod or anything. I'm not super fancy, so I'm gonna do this one-handed. So as you can see, I have a microphone inside here. It's a little bit of delay, but it's not bad. At least, you know, if I go crazy on these things, I can at least have the MIDI pattern. And then down at the feet here, and I can adjust the microphone volume to pick it up and to be more sensitive, which is pretty badass. So besides the kick, it's using this trigger, the one I showed earlier. It's attached to the back side, on the back there. This one's interesting. Actually, it's just a pile of junk mic that's just attached like so, and fairly sensitive. Was fairly sensitive, I should say. And then this one is my experimental piece of junk mic that I'll actually be doing some other videos on this. So if you can see, there's my mic. Obviously very sensitive to the touch, blah blah blah, yada yada. So that's it. If you have any questions, please get a hold of me, email, post stuff on my blog, or I'm Plague88 on Twitter. Thanks. Bye.